Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the webinar, SketchUp more than just a 3D making tool. I am Arnav. I'm an architect and an urban designer. I've been using SketchUp for over 15 years now. And even now, it does not stop to amuse me. For beginners, SketchUp seems to be a very easy tool, right? And once you start making a cube, you feel like you have learned everything in SketchUp. I felt the same way. That's how SketchUp has been designed. Unlike many other 3D making or BIM softwares, SketchUp has got very few tools and a very clean and simple interface. And once you use them all, you feel like you know them all. But SketchUp is equally advanced as it is simple to understand. In today's time, there is nothing you can't model in SketchUp. So, and if you are enter the realm of plugins or extensions, which they're called now, your possibilities are limitless, and not to mention the efficiency. But this is not what we are going to discuss here today. As the topic say, we are going to explore the possibilities in SketchUp other than creating amazing and accurate 3D models. So let's jump directly into them. First, a small disclaimer. We will be focusing mostly on native tools of SketchUp, that is SketchUp Pro, and I'll be using SketchUp 2020. So some things might not be exactly the same as the version you are using. And also, we will be using certain plugins. I'll mention them whenever I'll be using plugins. So if you are new to the world of SketchUp and if you have just started your journey in SketchUp, certain things might be a little too advanced for you, but bear with me. I will try to make it as simple as possible. So let's start. Now, first, let's start with creating floor plates for a model. So we architects and designers, we use SketchUp to develop our building forms, right? And we bring out our inner Calatrava and Gary to design our form, to evolve our building. So here I have evolved this building form by combining a circular base. This one is a circular base and a triangular top, right? So as per my concept, I have evolved this form. So what I'm going to do is I need to find out the internal floor plates. So we know that the top and the bottom are fixed, but the internal floor plates will be the combination of these two particular shapes. So how to find them? I'm going to create a rectangular shape or a rectangular plane. I need to make sure that the entire geometry is covered from all direction. Okay, so I just need to give it to a height, and I'm using the copy tool. I'll be giving it a height of 3 meters or 3000 millimeters, which is the standard floor height in my case, and I'll be multiplying it by 20, which is the number of floors. So there we have 20 different planes. So I have selected these planes. I'm going to use a native tool of SketchUp called Intersect Faces with Model. So that's it. You just need to erase all the additional faces, and all you are left with are, let me deselect the object. All we are left with are the wonderful plates, floor plates, that is evolving from a circular base to a triangular top, and anything in between are the combination of these two. You can also find out the areas of each and every floor plates. Like if I click on this, I know that the area is 1127.6. If I click somewhere in between here, I know that the area is 1200.16, and so on. So that is really going to help you in evolving your design. Next, generating contours from a given terrain. So how do we get this terrain? First, we need to geolocate the model. Once you geolocate the model, you will get this terrain data, and you just need to turn on the terrain. That's it. So you have this. Now using the exact same process, we are going to create the contours for this particular terrain. This is a group. This is a simple square, a rectangular base. I'm going to move it slightly closer to the plane as long as it does not touch the object. That's it. So I'll be copying it to give it a height of 1000 millimeters or 1 meter. This will be our contour interval. So I'll be multiplying it by 50 x without changing the tool. So there we have the number of planes, 50 planes here. I'll be intersecting it with the model. That's it. Now I'll erase all the additional part of the planes. There we have the contour along with the terrains topography. So we have certain unwanted data here, so which we'll be erasing using a tool called select only. The plugin is called Selection Toys. You can download the extension directly from SketchUp warehouse, extension warehouse. I'll be selecting faces. See, only the faces are selected. Select only faces. I'll delete it. Similarly, I will just select only edges. I'll move it a little bit just to see how the terrains have come out. Okay, now by default, SketchUp tends to break all the curve lines, and this is going to break down our model significantly. So if we see the entity info, we have almost 9,000 edges, close to 9,000 edges, and this will create havoc in your model. It will tend to slow down the model. So I'm going to use an extension which is called Simplify Contours, and with the standard setting, I'm going to select Done. So now you can see each and every contour has got a single line, and if I select all the contours, we have only 3,313 edges. So that's how we create contour lines in SketchUp with a particular interval. Now this is the same geometry, same terrain without the material, and these contour lines are just for representation. I've created in the same way, exactly the same way. So here we are going to use a plugin to generate the topographic study. So we are going to create color gradients for the contours. Okay, so what we need to do is, first we need to identify these the colors we need to use for the highest level and the lowest level. So how do we use them? So I have these two colors. I'm going to select the highest level color. I'm going to edit. If it is in HSL, you need to select RGB because we need to input the value in RGB. So this has got the values 255, 255, and 0. And the other one got a value of 0, 66, and 19. So that's it. That's the information we needed. So I've selected just the surface of the topography. We only need the surface. So now we are going to use a plugin called Color by Z, which is provided by Chris Fulmer Tools. Color by Z, I just selected. We need to input the values for the highest Z value, which is 255, 255, and 0 in our case. You can use any color. You just need the RGB values. So I am using these two colors, 66 and 19. Okay. Wait for some time. Let the plugin continue to process, and done. You see the beautiful gradients which it has created automatically from this darker color to the lighter color to represent the terrains. See, if I go to the plan view, we have this beautiful gradient along the contours. So I remember we used to create these kind of contour plans in Photoshop by coloring each and every contour levels, and it used to take hours just to create one single map. Now you can create it in minutes. Next is a similar study, but it is done for the study of slopes. So we need to distinguish between the slopes with gentle slope or the areas with steep slopes. So we have certain areas with steep slope, certain areas with very gentle slope. So how do we distinguish them? We just need to select the surface, topographic surface, click on extension. The plugin is provided by the same author and it's called color by slope. Click and wait for it to complete. That's it. This time they are already having the default settings for the colors. What it does is, for all the areas with very little slope or very gentle slope, it gives a bright vibrant blue color, and for all the areas with slope or steep slope, it gives a brown and or grayish brown color tone. So if you go to the plan view, you can identify the areas with steep slopes and the areas with gradual slope or no slope. That's it. Next, working with multiple axes. So we as a designer love to work in diagonal axis, and we often find it very difficult to work in two different axes or multiple axes when we are dealing with SketchUp, right? So what we are going to do here is, we have one plane here, we have the design along this axis and another part of the design along this axis. So we won't be able to create any rectangles, or we won't be able to create lines along this axis precisely, right? So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to control the orientation of the axis and the location of the axis by using two different scenes. So I know that many of you might be having the misconception that scenes are only to save the camera locations, but scenes are actually a very powerful tool. You can do wonders with if you just understand the concept of scenes. So we have two different scenes. One is having an axis at 90 degree, which is the standard axis. So sorry. So this is the axis at 90 degree. What I have done here is, in my scenes panel, I have created this scene with only the axis location and orientation saved in it. I have not saved the camera location here. So I can switch between two different axes. So I have created this axis using this tool. I have created the axis first, then I will update it, and that's it. So you need to create multiple scenes if you're working with multiple axes. Okay, now once I have within this particular scene with the axis already rotated, I can create rectangles, I can create lines along the red, blue and green axis as per our design. Okay, coming to the next technique. Again, we will be dealing with scenes. So here we will be creating multiple options. If your client asks for different options in SketchUp, you can create it within a particular model, within the same model, and you can control it by using the options tool the scenes tool. Again, what I have done here is I have not saved the camera settings here, but I am controlling the layers. If you can see, I have turned on the visible tags. In SketchUp 2020, they have changed the terminology of layers to tags. So if you see tags here, it is nothing but layers in the previous version. So what I have done is, in this particular scene, I have got a particular set of layers turned on and saved in it, and in another scene I have got another set of layers turned on, and thus we have two different scenes. So all of these, whatever you see, whichever objects have got changed, are in a different layer. And if I switch it, I have turned off the option A and I turned off the option B. So if I turn both the layers on, you can see both the options are there. Okay, next, again, by working with scenes, we can simplify our objects, simplify our scenes by working with multiple or different components. Here I have a copy of the same sofa. I've just colored it differently just to distinguish it. And I will be replacing this particular component with a detailed version of the component. So how do we do this? I will first make it a unique component so that all of the instances does not get replaced. And I will be saving it first. I've already saved it, so I will only be reloading it. So this is the original model, which is this one, which is already saved, and this is the detailed model. You can see the difference in the file sizes. So I've selected the detailed model and done. See, it got replaced with the detailed version. So I'm going to move it back to the same location, and I have turned on both the layers. And similarly, you can control more complex objects. Like in this particular scene, the plants, we already know that they are really heavy objects, right? They tend to slow your SketchUp models down. And even all the decorative items, we don't really need them while modeling. So we'll turn that off in a particular scene. We will work on this particular scene as long as we don't need to move those particular detailed objects, and we'll switch back to our complex models. See, we have added so much details here, and the scene is without any detail. We can switch it by click of one single scene, and you can your layer sets can be in hundreds. It doesn't matter, but you can switch them in just one particular click of the scene. Next, we are going to cover a little bit about dynamic components. All of you who have already been using dynamic components must already know how powerful they are. They are components with specific properties built in with them. They are created with certain properties so that they interact with us, and they also have parametric properties in them. I'll show you how. Like if I select this particular component, it is a dynamic component available in the SketchUp warehouse. I'll go to the component options, and we'll see that there are few options that we can change. I can change the color. I can choose between these two colors. I can go to white. I can change the depth. I can change the height. Let's type it say 1000 and the width of say 900, and I'll just apply. Now see, you can see that this has got a width of 900 along this, and a height of 1000 as per these parameters. and also the number of shelves got increased automatically. Similarly, if we increase the width of the couch, the number of seats gets increased like this. So, and also for this particular model, it has been created to repeat itself at a particular interval if it is scaled. So they are created with such properties. Okay, now these are all default SketchUp models which are already available if you have an installed SketchUp in your system. This is what I have downloaded it from the net or from the SketchUp warehouse. And we all know that the problem with scaling Windows is that it tends to scale everything proportionately, and it will also scale the frames. But these are modeled in such a way that if you scale them, the frames will remain constant. The only change in the dimensions will be in the flexible panels or the panels. Similarly here, if we extend it to the height, the frames got extended. Now there can be more properties in dynamic objects. Like for example, here I'll show you how we can interact with the models, dynamic objects. I will go to tools. These are all native tools. Okay, we are not using any plugins right now. Interact. If I click on these models, on this particular object, you can see that only certain objects has got the aesthetic mark when I hover over the cursor on top of them. If I click, see how it interacts. You can use these tools to impress your clients and create beautiful presentation. Now next, using several manufacturer models. So many branded companies, they provide their SketchUp models in the SketchUp warehouse. Not just in the warehouse, they also have such models in their websites. So you can download them, you can use them, and they do that so that you get the best possible idea of the product in the virtual environment. So those models are precise, and they also have the product IDs built in with them, and sometimes even more informations. Like if I go to my components and if I search Kohler, you can see that these models are created by Kohler company themselves. See, these models are created by Kohler themselves. And if I use one of those models in my scene, and if I use the name of the definition, I can order exactly the same particular model from the vendor. So that's the benefit of this. Plus, there are even further information which are available on the net, like Asian Paints provide their entire material palettes in their website. So I have downloaded it into SketchUp. I can apply any color. I can apply any color here, and these colors have their name built in with them. And if I give my vendor this particular color code, I will get this particular paint from the market. So it is as simple as that. Now we will be talking about a few examples of simulations that are possible in SketchUp. Now this simulation is focused on cloth, and I'll be using a plugin called ClothWorks. So I have created these two planes, and I have subdivided it and applied a material. Subdivided means I've divided it into number of different segments. And I'll be converting it into a cloth. Similarly, we need a collider. So wait a second, let me select the correct object. I'll be selecting this, right click, cloth work, make colliders. So what it will do is it will create real time examples or real best possible simulation how the cloth will wrap around with this particular object based on the properties of the cloth. So we can change the properties of the cloth here as well. I'll be selecting a cotton cloth and done. I'll just need to play and wait for the tool to complete. So this is the best possible simulation for cloth based on the parameters which we have selected. And once it is complete, I'll stop the plugin and you'll see that it has wrapped around the table and the couch, and it has also applied the material correctly. So there are even further simulation plugins available. This plugin is available. This plugin has got two versions. One is paid and free version as well. So you can download it from the extension warehouse. There are more plugins available which you can use for creating collisions, creating animations, and even more. You should try the plugin called MS Physics. Okay, moving on to our next trick. Here we have a simple residence where I have done the study of the shadows. This kind of representation is called a shadow range diagram. So this kind of analysis is really important if you are working with the sun path and working with the study of shadows. So by default, SketchUp has got a native powerful shadow tools. So if you already have your model geolocated, or you can geolocate it from here, which I have already shown. If the model is already geolocated, and then you will get the accurate shadow information based on the time you mention here or the date. So, but the limitation is that it creates the shadow for only one particular time. So what I have done is I have exported the hourly shadows for different time in different images, and I have overlaid it in Photoshop and played with the opacity to get this kind of effect, and I have applied it in SketchUp as a material. So this particular thing, what you are seeing, is an image. So I know this is kind of a trick, but it is really useful. What I'm going to show you is, instead of exporting the shadows for each and every hour, how we can speed up the process. So here I have got two different scenes where I have controlled only the shadow parameters, not the viewing angle or the camera. So I'll be going to the plan view. Okay, I'll be going to the plan view, and I have got the two scenes. First scene is at morning 7 o'clock, and the time is also defined. It needs to be on 21st of December. I think it's auto saving. 21st of December, and evening 6 o'clock on the same day. So we have two different scenes at a span of 12 hours, including 7 and 6 o'clock. So what we are going to do here is we are going to export it as animation, not as individual 2D graphics. But before that, we need to do a few settings in animation. You must enable scene transition and duration should be 1 second. I will let you know why 1 second. And scene delay should be 0. Another important settings needs to be in your scenes panel, and these two scenes needs to be included in animation. And all my other scenes are not included in animation. So I'll be exporting the animation between these two scenes, and I'll be saving it to my shadow range folder. I have already exported. Let me create another folder. And now this setting is also important. It needs to be 12 frames per second because our time duration was at an interval of 12 hours, right? So we'll be exporting 12 frames, one for each hour. And the important thing here is it needs to be the same as the time interval. That's why we saved it as 1 second between the animation. And we are going to turn off loop to starting scene and save. Now it may export a few additional scenes, but that doesn't matter. So I'm going to open the scenes. I'll show you in a moment. So there we have all the images. Ignore the watermarks on the sides. You have all the shadow patterns, and all you need to do is take them to Photoshop, overlay them, and play with the opacity and play with the blending options, and you will get shadow range just like this. So we have come to an end of the webinar, but there is more to those who are interested to learn. I'm happy to announce our 5-day SketchUp workshop in which you will learn various ways to modify terrains. You will learn how to create this particular sun path accurate to your site location, and developing your form as per your concept, representing your concept, and much more in SketchUp. So if you found this webinar useful, you will find the 5-day workshop much more exciting, and this will change the way you use SketchUp. I can guarantee you that. You will also receive a mail on your registered email ID. And thank you so much. I'll be taking any queries. Note down your queries and write to me. Thank you so much. I'm hoping to get a message from you and interact with you. Thank you.
If you like the content of this webinar, please consider subscribing to our channel Archipedia, where we'll be sharing more of such webinars and a lot of interesting information on SketchUp and architecture. Also, please share the video with all of your friends so that they also get the benefit from this webinar.